We are continuing the meeting from Friday, October 11th. Meeting of the Finance Committee. And I think it'd be good so to have a word there. Lord Almighty, I thank you for the opportunity to come before you and present the finances of the county of Stephenson in Illinois. Pray that you help us make good decisions tonight for the taxpayers of this county, and for the folks that live here and work here and that work for the county. Hopefully we can come to some good determinations, Lord, and be beneficial to the folks that live here. And thank you for this opportunity. Please bless it. Please be this. In Jesus' name. So we are, hopefully folks have a chance to at least take a peek at the meeting minutes. That will be Friday. But we are going to start out on budget 912. I do believe. Just kind of keep coming through these guys. Unless you had something else you wanted to mention before we start.
I did just want to mention that I think to kind of work through the big parts of this budget, it's good to have goals or know what everyone's goals are. In terms of supplemental requests, is that a huge goal? Is the goal not to increase the tax levy? ARPA funds, that type of thing. It would just be helpful to know what the end goal is. Because then I can start to work backwards and work the numbers in a way that could hopefully make everything happen. If that makes sense.
It's not registering with being property.
Okay.
I think I understand what you're getting at. Because we actually discussed that on the way up a little bit. It'd be nice to be able to work on these individually, create a big picture and vote on the whole thing at once. Actually, versus all these little pieces, and then
Right.
all of a sudden get to the end and go, oh, wait a minute. So I might talk to Karen about changing the process next year. I mean, do that, but at this point, obviously, I think the end goal is simply a balanced budget. Right? I mean, is there something beyond that? I know we've got the supplemental requests we've got to try and work in.
Right.
That's part of it. But if we can't do that and balance the budget at the same time.
Right. So a very large part of the supplemental requests is the highway road project contributions. So if that's an important goal for the committee and for the board, then for a portion of that, because they're asking for $2 million. There are different solutions that I could offer. Okay, well, you might have to increase taxes along with reducing one levy and increasing another.
Mm-hmm.
So there are solutions. It just depends on the big picture and what you want to make work. That's just an example.
No, I think that's a great point. I don't know if we're prepared to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add to that sentimental, when you said it wasn't quite registering, and a balanced budget is always a goal, but you can balance it about 20 different ways.
Sure.
And not knowing what the priorities necessarily are, that's what bogs this process down. If we knew that at the outset, yes, absolutely, roads are the priority, and then you balance to that. But not knowing what the priorities are makes it difficult because it can go 20 different ways.
Right. That's a great point. Before we get started, does anybody else have a comment? I'll meet you at the committee. Sure. I know of one priority. I do. Yeah, go ahead.
So after Friday's meeting, I started looking into kind of where the county was at for property taxes based on kind of where we're at versus other local counties and also nationwide. And I came up with this thing online here It's from taxrates.org. And it looks like, according to them, we have one of the highest median property taxes in the United States. It's ranked 315th of the 3,143 counties in order of median property tax. Now, we all know that probably 2/3 of the property taxes go to the schools. But the overall tax burden on the average income in this county is pretty high. So I think for one of my goals is not to raise taxes and try to see if we can support some of this supplemental. If we have to cut back on some of them, then so be it. That's one of my.
Yeah, I would have to say I share in, Mr. Joger's discussion points on the levy request. After thinking about that, and having a chance to reflect on it, you know, I'm not gonna be in favor of that, so, unless there's a compelling reason. I think we got what we got, income, and we had an EAB increase, I believe, the last year. So it's helped some. We're just gonna have to figure out how to manage through that the best we can. Without ARPA funding. What Mr. Jover said about the supplementals, I would be in agreement with. I mean, if we can't do everything, then we can't do everything. We've got to take a look at the overall and see what are the most important things that are going to impact the county. Roads are obviously a big deal, right? So that's got to take some precedence over some other things. But we're in a position now that we got to look at ways to squeeze a little bit, maybe here and there. And we just can't, after we got through Friday, and again, I had a chance to reflect on it. I'm like, man, we're just passing everything without really pushing back. So maybe we don't need to. It seems to me that push back some of these things. So I guess that's kind of where my head's at. But I don't, as far as a specific goal, I don't have one outside of spending the money that we have been given by people in this county in the best way that we can. To me, that's a hard thing because it does. It tries to encompass all the priorities everybody has. Each of the departments has legitimate priorities. So we have to try and take all that into consideration. Which is why we have this process where we try and go through each one of these and then we do bring it together as a whole and then look at it as a board. So we're going to be exercising this not only tomorrow night, but I'm sure for the next few weeks and then in the next month. Anybody else in terms of priorities? Mr. Bush, our finance director, put forth the ideal that it's good to have our priorities in mind as we're going through this. What we really want to make sure gets funded. Maybe there's some other things that aren't quite as important on a priority basis for this committee and subsequently the county board. But having some of those things more in mind, it might be easier for her than to extrapolate out how we can make adjustments and what she can put forward to for consideration, at this committee and then at the board. Makes her job a little bit easier to how to focus things. So if you have any input into that, now would be the time to bring that.
Well, I guess no more than everybody else, roads for one.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the county and city as well, but that's one. And then also to economic development.
So I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
When we look at this 2025 budget summary, at least the one I have in front of me, and it shows 1.4 million. What is built into that? Are all of these supplementals built in? How much of a tax increase is built in? Where did we come up with a positive 1.4 million?
So you've got to look at each individual fund. So like the probation service fees, those are all dictated by
Right.
the courts. 911, that makes up a huge chunk of it. The ARPA dollars, that is, I'm still working on getting concrete numbers from different departments who were given ARPA dollars and what they will have remaining out of those dollars that they were allocated. So still working on that number, but that is going to be around, it'll take care of this. We'll have some interest there, but taking those big numbers out, IMRF, we cannot allocate that. I mean, outside of the tax levy, any surplus, can't move those funds around. Obviously the highway funds, you can't do that either. So we're basically working with general corporate, public safety, the capital fund, and the American Rescue Plan Act. So the 1.4 is not a surplus that we can allocate different places. So I want to just make that clear. So this 1.4, that the real estate taxes, 3% increase is built in to the general fund in this worksheet. So the 3% increase was around $318,000. That was divided between the general fund and the mental health 708 board, who asked for an increase from 390 to 416. One thing I did want to mention, if I can, Mr. Chairman, is just going back to the supplemental request, I just want to make this known. So the benches and the carpet in the courthouse are being covered by the public defender with his separate AOIC funds. I worked with the sheriff to move the squad cars into his public safety budget. So that also is not, it does not have to be considered. So what the committee needs to consider is the road projects, the IT supplemental. Public defender did not pass out of committee, so that is done. And the mower, the facilities supplemental request. This was not a true supplemental request, like I mentioned last month. There's a corresponding revenue in the general fund for this. So these are the supplemental requests that need to be considered. Facilities asks, IT, and highway.
And none of those are in the budget, right?
Correct. As it stands right now, there is $155,000 for supplemental requests.
I thought we were working with some additional land on that one.
So that is an option. I spoke with the treasurer earlier today to reallocate underneath the county's levy. So we can move funds out of the IMRF levy and reallocate those to the general fund, which would in turn supply more dollars to the capital fund.
Yes, sir.
Just on a simple note. Back to the expense for the vehicle for, why couldn't we use one of the trucks that we're going to get rid of from the sheriff's department and fill that there? We already have it. Why can't we use one of those used vehicles? It's only got 50,000 miles on it.
Oh, for the facilities?
For the facilities. I mean, I don't see
That's a
reason
good idea.
we couldn't use that.
What was the ask for the facilities?
25,000.
I thought they were traded in. Sure. I don't,
Well, not always, because I know vehicles that are not always gone. That's just a thought.
That's a good idea. Sure.
One of the things that I was thinking about previously over the weekend, and I didn't mention it until they brought it up, but up the 708 board.
Mhm.
I think with the conditions that we're under, I would like to see us leave that flat. And not give them the increase, so we have that. Additional funding. I think where we're at, we should leave it. flat.
We already went through that. I don't think we did that.
No, we
No,
don't.
that's coming up. All right.
That would save 26,000.
Mr. Copeland, can you check with the sheriff and see if one of those vehicles might be available? What's that?
Just sent him a message.
Is it? Oh, thank you. And right now, in terms of available funds for, I remember what we call it, as a backup for 6 months, 8 months.
Sure.
We've got about, our reserve funds are at about 8 months, give or take.
That's what they were at the last time that's, we'd like to stay at least 6.
Yeah.
Right?
But I'm just saying, you have a little bit of wiggle room at the end. I know you don't.
Well, that wiggle room is budgeted in here in cash carry
Is it?
forward.
Okay.
$3 million in cash carry
Yeah.
forward.
So, but if we could go back to the IMRF levy,
Mhm.
portion of it for a moment, I just want to be clear about saying that's not a sustainable plan
Right.
every year, not just
Sooner or
see
later,
that
it's
as
gonna catch up.
something. And it's going to depend because our, employer contribution rate varies year to year.
Mhm.
So it depends how it varies. So I just, like, if that's one of the things that's going to make this budget work, to not expect that necessarily every year. And then.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help the committee understand all of our options, so if there are. When you say, going back to the reserve funds, to leave that, to make sure we have 6 months, so what does that leave us? I thought, did I hear you say $3 million?
$3 million in the
Over.
cash carry forward is built into this budget.
Okay. And that gives us 8 months.
Or 6 months.
I think that
That's not-
keeps us down to
That's
6.
6.
Okay.
That's not,
And that IMRF potential move is at that 1.1. Is that some?
So
number?
if we decrease the levy for IMRF, this is what it would look like. It's decreasing it by $400,000. And that is giving mental health their increase of $26,000. And then the general fund would increase $374,000. So that's the
We say
option
the
of,
26, now we just leave them.
so that was,
Any
right.
number.
that was included the mental health. So
We take the 26 out
if
of
you
that.
take the 26 out,
And go up there.
right?
Absolutely. Good time.
so do you have any funding ideas for these other supplementals?
Well, as it stands now, the IT supplemental request can be funded. I would say if any portion needs to go to the roads, I think taxes need to be increased and the levy needs to be rearranged.
To get any of that $2
Well, if you increase, so I can put numbers in,
million?
I would like me to.
I'm just asking. I'm not,
I don't know if the scenario that gets the entire.
If it gets, no.
no,
I-
no, and I wouldn't expect it to.
No.
I think that, we're gonna have to look for some supplemental funds somehow. I don't know. That's where, believe there's a subcommittee looking at grant writers right now.
To get that, so. We can count on it.
If you ever get good at it. Yeah, great.
So with using the IMRF levy reduction and adding those dollars into the general fund, then we have 255,000 for supplemental costs. I believe.
And that's what the, IT requests are.
No.
No.
So that would fund the IT request. And then we have 135 left.
Didn't you just 7 That's
So you want me to reduce the 708?
just see what it looks like.
And I would probably take the 3% levy increase out.
Correct. This is not,
That's not,
does not
Yeah, we got
include a
that.
3% increase.
thank you.
Mhm. I'm just gonna put the IT request here, just to. 161,000 remaining.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Those are switches and brings it in the left.
That's what it is, which is. It's also loose. Sorry. Sorry.
Relevant switches.
I just. I wonder if we gave him half that this year.
Well, he said he couldn't. He's not gonna spend it all in one shot.
Right, to the year, so.
Some of it up front, and then by the end of the year, we spend it. Sounds like. More than enough, we don't.
No, absolutely.
Security issues and.
He said he was available if we needed.
Well, that's when we get to the information technology. But
What else is up there for supplementals?
So the road project for 2 million. And then the 3 facilities. Supplementals for a mower, a vehicle, and a trailer. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, don't we pay someone to do all the mowing?
yeah, I thought
I
that
think
was
that
contract.
some of it's been
No,
turned
No.
back.
No,
we do not. Townships are taking care of some of it. They no longer are. Always getting.
Only one township is doing it right now.
Okay.
But we are paying that township.
If we get a used vehicle for $25 less, there, and then we can pay for the zero turn grant. Yeah. We could cover that. Probably 60 years, put it back on the list.
I just didn't know if it would be cheaper to pay the service to do that
Maybe.
instead of carrying the liability and
You did well for RFP for that, if you can, Mr. Chairman. Speaking
Yeah,
of that, we
please
went out
do.
for RFP earlier this year and respond to it. It was both mowing as well as picking up garbage. I think we handled that through your committee, didn't we, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we get a car from the sheriff.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to do that.
and, we can have Nate pay the prayer.
Maybe.
Well. You obviously don't have the money to do it. You're gonna have to make some choices. What's important? It's important to take care of these county facilities, so you can do that. It's important to put roads in, but we obviously don't have $2 million to do that. I guess if we can get the 25 off the board, or if we can pick up a vehicle somehow. I mean, if all it's gonna be doing is transporting the more facilities, I don't think we need anything too fancy.
No.
And he's not,
What's that?
he's not asking really for anything expensive or, and you're not gonna buy much pickup truck for 25 grand.
No, I know, I know. But, yeah, uh, so Adrian, if we took the 25 out, just for kicks and giggles,
get 25 off.
ask them to find a trailer and a mower for a combo of like 15. And then, dropped, well, let's say 19.5. If we drop Nate to 100 grand, which I gotta believe he can get that done. I'll take the heat on that one. And use this 19.5 for a 0-turn mower and a closed trade. What does that mean? I mean, you basically have the 120 covered. So you drop it down to 100,500. And put the other 19.5 in for those two. Again, we gotta give and take. Where's that leave us?
161,000.
169
There.
or 160.
So we got 161 we can put on the roads. Okay. It doesn't get a whole lot of road. And again, going back to the reserve funds,
Mhm.
that's including 6 months, which is not 8.
So right now we have 8 I think when I figured it was 8.4. We needed 8.15 according to our expenses. Using 3 million of cash carry forward would take that down to 5.4.
What you pay for all the supplements. We're not talking.
That's putting $3 million
Already in there.
It's already in
Put
there.
it in.
Yes,
That's what I wasn't understanding.
yes. $3 million is in cash carry forward as a revenue for general fund.
Yep.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Sheriff has a truck that you will gladly allow to be used in that capacity. It will be a 1,500 gram four-door with the Tonto cover. For facilities.
All right. Tell him thank you.
Very good.
Thank
I'm asking what he wants to do.
you.
Don't ask him.
I said, nothing.
See you.
How much would we have to go back for the 3 million and get to the 6 months? Would we have to go like 2.5? 2.7?
So I did want to mention this. So we always plan for the worst. Okay. So I looked back and at the end of each year, there is money left over in the budget. There has been consistently. And we've been pretty right on with our revenue projections. So that's something to consider too. I think that's a great scenario if a department plans to spend X amount of dollars and they don't need to spend X amount of dollars, then that's great. So I think we can kind of count on, if the trend continues, that we will have meeting funds. What that is, I don't know.
But we can't really plan for that either.
Right.
Right, in terms of something. Oh,
So an option is to move through the funds that kind of don't involve the supplemental requests. We do have the insurance numbers, so we can move forward with highway funds, nursing center. And I think maybe holding off on capital, American Rescue Plan, those funds, general fund.
I know one of the other questions that we have to address is this 500K that we allocated for German Valley. How does that play out if that, for instance, doesn't go to German Valley
We can reallocate those funds to the general fund.
or to the highway?
Or to the highway. Yes, to the general
I
fund
just want
to
everybody to be.
fund supplemental request to go to the highway.
You're
Yes.
gonna do that,
Yes, sir.
you're gonna do that with 500,000 to give the city.
Oh, we can't because we're.
Why not?
Check. I think that's already done, isn't it?
I'm going to speak for tomorrow.
Unless you get the board to vote it down.
Seems to me that the thought process would be the same, if that's what you do. Then you should take it all.
Yeah.
But that doesn't look real good on us.
Neither of them. I was just posing the question. Oh. Well, we're not gonna magically make money here. Anybody have any thoughts on this? Larry, do you have any thoughts on, what happened, Kurt?
This doesn't even take into consideration with the new union contracts coming up. Right.
Which one's circuit
Circuit
clerk and
clerk.
we don't have those figures.
No.
We don't know what that's gonna be, right?
Right. The highway funds are standalone funds. There will be associated, Social Security and IMRF contributions, but I think those funds are relatively they're healthy, so I don't see that impacting the overall picture. The circuit clerk could, because that's built into the general fund, for sure.
We don't know what some of the other tax advisors. Like a question. Well. Unless somebody's got any other ideas, I think we've got $162,000 that we can move over to the road fund, help them funds, I don't know, something.
But that could ask them,
Huh?
do that last.
Yeah. Go through everything else. Maybe we can pull some off in other areas. All right,
What about the personnel requests? We've done with those.
I think this hit on some of those.
I'd just like a little explanation on that spreadsheet. We have a total of 29,759. Is that a monthly figure? Is that?
Yearly,
And
That's it?
yes.
two of them are a little bit additional in terms of an increase over the COLA. So we could always revisit that and push back.
But creating a new position, it's only $7,700 for the year.
Which one is
Or
that? Is that the
EMA.
EMA? Right, he's just. So there was already an assistant director line right here. So the budget was 26,000, and then he's creating a new position that would replace this assistant director. It would be deputy director, and that position would pay 35. So he's talking about the difference here.
Thank you.
Mhm. Did you want to move it to the standalone funds or?
Yeah, I think we better start hitting on those. We're gonna do all night.
Okay. So nursing center. This is based on a census of 47. You'll see the real estate tax levy that has not changed in a, you know, you don't even have the history of when that was anything different from $500,000. We did input the new insurance numbers along with the employees' health insurance and the HSA contribution. And then the insurance, the liability and workman's comp numbers came in well below what they were last year. So their budget was at a deficit. And then when we put those numbers in, there's $119,000 surplus.
Hang on a minute, I thought we were still up at 912.
I thought you wanted me to move on to the standalone funds.
Oh,
So we're not encompassing general fund dollars.
I got you. Sorry.
The standalone funds, when I refer to that, they have their own revenue, own expenses. It's all contained in one budget. The general fund is very broad.
Potentially with facilities, don't they do maintenance? They cut the grass at the nurses.
Mhm.
So why couldn't we add so the truck's already taken care of. It's out of the thing. Why couldn't we add in for facility maintenance
Goodbye, that.
to help, or we'll split it out between other facilities that we actually to help get the trailer in the zero turn.
Mhm.
It's going to be used at each location.
Right. No. Well, we do always seem to have extra money in the B and D arena. Too, so. Maybe we can pull that up or something. It's a good idea. Any other thoughts on that? You hear what you said?
No.
Basically using funds, like if you got extra funds at the nursing center, using a chunk of that to help pay for the mower and the trailer. You know, splitting it with some of the other, like P and D covers the rest of, you know, the county landings and what have you. So maybe we split it 50-50 with it, because we use it to mow the nursing center too.
Mr.
Chairman.
Mhm.
So that's a great idea if that surplus was a genuine surplus.
And it's-
It's not a genuine surplus.
That's
If there's $788,000 currently of unpaid bills, that there's no way to reflect in our current budget to carry that forward.
kind of enough.
So as money is available, we've been using it to pay bills, and there's still then $788,000 unpaid.
We had a big profit last year. $500,000. I digress. But this is a budget that is presented to us as, for fiscal 25. Right? And, we have to do something with that. You know, that is a good question. Madam Chair, like, why isn't that reflected on the budget sometimes?
So we've never had to deal with it before. So we were just talking before the meeting, you know, that in a lot of the budgets, we have cash carry forward. Why don't we have debt carry forward
Right,
as an expense? That's transparent.
right.
Right now, unless you dive deep into some of my financial reports, you don't know that that debt exists.
Right.
Just a thought. And
But how do you-
we've never had to do that before.
See, again, if you look at the total picture though, if they would collect half the revenue that's hanging out there, you know, you wouldn't have it. So that's a hard number to calculate. But the reality of it is that revenue's not in yet. You have the bills in front of you to pay. So we should take that into consideration. So,
I've only brought that up because although this paper's idea is a good one, I don't think it applies in this particular situation because there really is not any surplus cash. Even though it's depicted here, that's simply because the debt is sufficient.
and that's at a census of 47 too. Right now we're at what, 41? Still, somewhere in that neighborhood, still struggling. That's actually, yeah. It's nice to see a reduction in liability. That was a pleasant surprise. I did not see that coming. Yeah, good. Yeah, I was wondering if they were even gonna extend liability. They've done a decent job in the last couple of years. So is anyone on, Madam Chairman of the Nursing Center Committee, do you have a motion or recommendation on this budget? Is there a motion to approve? Do I hear a second? Yeah. Hear a second. Discussion wise. I don't know that I would offer an amendment, but somehow we have to note, I think, two things. One, I had thought about this at the nursing center meeting the other night of asking them to go back to a budget of 25. Marcos is intent on getting the census up to 50 initially. So I just kind of left that alone. But still, to be on the conservative side, but I think it's better. Because we actually hit that on the head this year. The average 45, that's what we budgeted. Because I pushed back last year, so. That's one thing to consider when we vote on this. Two, I think the other thing we need to think about is how we add in the comment on the amount of money we owe yet. That this is not in fact a balanced budget when we owe 700 and some thousand in AP. So I don't know how we do that. Since we don't have a process. Yes, sir.
So those are 2023, 2024 expenses. These are 2025 expenditures that we're looking at now. All agree. January 1st, you're not going to have the census in place to actually have the revenue that you need for the full 12 months. Because you need to have that census in January 1st to generate that kind of revenue for 12 months. It's not going to have enough income as it did this year to pay all the 2025 expenditures. It's what it is. So if you're going to add back all those expenditures for 2023 and 2024 into this budget, you're not going to have a balanced budget. You're going to have to come up with a revenue side to cover that 2025. I'm not suggesting it's wrong. This probably is a conversation for the end of October. It's probably when we should start the budget policy discussions. We're going to do that.
Yeah, I think it would be good. We need to be dealing with reality, and that this is not reality situation. So, but under the current circumstances, as Mr. Helms indicated, this is the 2025 plan. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, moving it forward to the county board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed. All right.
Moving on to highway. The reason this budget was held back was because of the insurance numbers. We have since included those numbers in the budget, and there's a surplus of $3,400.
Anybody like to make a motion to approve this one?
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Mr. Chairman, do you have any comments on Public Works on this?
I do think Public Works runs a pretty clean ship. And their points well taken. Their costs have continued to go up, and we have roads that date back to 1955. It's very shaky. I think they do as best that they can with what they're working.
Does anybody want to make any suggested changes to this budget? What came out of committee and was approved? So, hearing none, all those in favor of moving this to the county board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Moving on to matching.
Can you shrink that a little bit, just so we can see what the.
You can see the
When we were
notes
looking at it
or
before, you we can see the increase or decrease.
I have to move it over. Well, I mean, I can delete one of the columns if you'd like, if you wanted me to delete 2021,
Yes, please.
Yeah,
I did.
2022.
Yeah, just a
I
second.
did.
That's fine.
You can think, I think. There you go.
Thank you.
Mhm. You want 2023 out too?
No,
You can see
I
the
mean,
budget notes,
we
but
can
you
see-
can't see the percentage. That's one column over.
No,
We can definitely touch on that each time though. So this is,
76,000% increase. What's it?
that's the surplus. So they've actually decreased their request 24%.
Gotcha.
This is a standalone fund, its own revenue source. The surplus is 7,600.
What is included in that in terms of
In terms of revenue,
where's the revenue coming and where's it going?
real estate taxes, they are part of the levy.
Right.
Corporate replacement tax, which is only $200. Funds and interest, those are the only revenue sources. And there's some personnel and then road expenses, maintenance. Brian always does a really good job of the projects that are coming up and what exactly those project amounts are.
So those are consultants to help with the road projects?
Those are just the road project identifiers.
We have a motion to move that one on to the county board. We have a motion, we have a second. We have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. County board.
County bridge is also part of our real estate tax levy, so you'll see that amount here. They would also receive some miscellaneous income. And there's some personnel. And here's all the project information that ends up being a surplus of $700.
Do you want to make a motion on this? Whoever makes the motion to approve, second? Second. Second. Any other thoughts? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
Township bridge. So this is just federal funds and they're immediately sent to the bridge fund. So this is an in and out, there's no surplus.
Motion to approve, anyone? So. You're interested in approve, second? I'll second. Motion and second, any discussion?
The year you did that, there's a note in there that says approve the finance.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I?
I just said there's a note that says
Sorry,
approve
sorry.
the finance in September.
Oh, we did that one already?
Yes, we did. So moving on to county motor fuel. Receive the county motor fuel taxes. There's some cash carry forward included in that budget. Is some personnel and insurance, so we did rework those numbers. I did speak with Brian this afternoon. There's a surplus of 170,000 for this fund.
Make motion to approve, Chairman.
Your motion approved, do I hear a second? And second, any discussion? Are those funds that can be used towards roads? Any more, few, assume
the
the
one's 7.
surplus. All those in favor of moving this on to the board? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So township motor fuel. Opioid settlement. I suggest we move on from capital. That's where all the supplemental requests are. Move on to the health department. So you'll see some of their grants were reduced, the COVID dollars were reduced. We did adjust for health insurance. They are also part of the tax levy, but they only get $40,722. And it's been revenue from the general fund. So the transfer from the general fund is remained 15,000, and they only take it if they need it.
So most of that increase is coming from
Which increase? The overall budget,
yeah.
it's all grants.
Let's look at the expenses too. And put on a couple lines in there. And see the expenses.
Oh, okay.
Revenues.
4.9% overall.
Their cash carry forwards 169,000. And yet, don't they have, the fund balance?
Right. Cash carry forward is usually used as a balancing tool. If you need to use the money in the bank to balance your budget, then you can take as much as you want. You don't have to. I mean, it's not common practice to take everything that you have in the bank and build it into your budget.
Which are they thinking? Which is in there?
Currently in their funds,
End of September.
You heard 27,000, okay. Okay, we need to get to 1,000 to do. Well, we get 40 on
on the tax levy,
the levy, and we get another 15.
15 from the general fund transfer, yes.
So we can use the 15 from the general fund to pay the loan.
It's 58,668.
So
So
the health
the
department also receives a separate levy for tuberculosis, which is higher.
The
than
TV
amount
goes.
they're getting.
yes,
Yeah,
it's broken
yeah,
up, so
the TV.
right here. It's 58,665.
So they're getting nearly 100,000.
Does it have to be allocated?
Because to your levy.
It's something you can do in this budget, just pass it as is. You can manipulate the general fund transfer, or you can deny it and send it back to the health department. You can't change the individual lines except for the general fund.
At 15.
At 15? That's the one I go.
Would you like to make a motion in that regard?
Make a motion to remove that.
And approve the rest? Is that okay?
What's that?
To remove that and approve the rest? And the motion to remove the 15,000 transfer from the general fund to the health department and approve the rest of the budget as it stands. Here's a second. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Adrian, are you able to calculate what that does to their overall budget? It's still balanced.
It's not.
It's short by just 15.
It's short of 15.
Yes.
And it's what?
So what's the process for that, Adrian?
It would have to go back to the Board of Health. Any changes were made here.
Will they have a chance to meet?
It's a call a special meeting.
And we say the backs to the wall. So rescind my motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay,
Put it back in.
I guess so. Found the way to the end of the year to spend it because we might about.
Last thing I would just say is there's opportunities. For county board meetings in November. Changes to any budget. If you have consensus in this body. Move that 15,000. That's only if you have consensus from finance Tuesday.
Would everybody be in agreement to try and rescind that 15,000 so we use it for something else? Mr. Frick, Mr. Bush?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Okay. I will, ask our representative. That need to talk to Mr. Green, who's the?
I would talk directly to the department.
Very. I'll let him. All right.
Okay, moving on to animal control.
Wait a minute.
All right.
We rescinded those motions.
Oh.
Wait, I need a new motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Yeah.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Now on to animal control. A new line was added for animal pickups, increased donations, along with, registration of statutory fees. And then there's also the transfer from the ARPA fund. We budgeted 71,000 originally. 35,500 is going to be transferred in 24, so the additional 25 will be budgeted or transferred in, 25. So there's another, this was just as of 8/31, so there's another.
So this. Should
That's
that, should that add up to 71?
right, that's only,
It's only 60,500.
Got another 11,000.
was another 10.5 transfer in September. Just updated on the sheets. Yeah, so the additional 25,000 will be in 2025. So 4% COLAs were added. The secretary position is going to be changed to part-time. So that takes part of the health insurance and HSA contribution out. So we were able to balance that budget with a surplus of $147.
I would entertain a motion, Brian.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So the Veterans Assistance Commission, I've reached out several times, because they are included in our levy. So you'll see the VAC right here. I have not received any notification of any changes, so I just kept it the same. So it's basically just, we receive the real estate taxes and distribute them to the VAC. So it's in and out. Balanced
What do
budget.
they do? Veterans Assistance Commission.
They provide services to veterans in the county. Transportation services.
Sometimes they'll pay some taxes,
Okay.
heating bills.
Just curious. I haven't done, I know we've done some stuff. There's another organization here in town that's like, it's where they go for foodstuffs and personal care items and things like that. Okay, I'm entertaining a motion to approve that. Have a motion and a second. Do I hear any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We approved probation service fees, so on to emergency management. This includes a transfer from the public safety fund, which is their main source of revenue. Cash carry forward is $60,000, and then this does include a personnel request for a new position, a deputy director. So there's a surplus of $8,800.
Make a motion to approve, Chairman.
And motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
And the motion is second. Any other discussion? See any? Hearing none,
To Social Security, this is also part of.
we didn't pass it. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So on to Social Security, real estate taxes, 509,000. There is going to be a drastic reduction in personal property replacement tax, as the treasurer has mentioned several times. There's a transfer from the health department, to cover their employee expenses, also a transfer from the nursing center. So we have a surplus of 90,675.
And this is our contribution to Social Security for our employees.
Yes.
Entertain a motion to approve that. And I hear a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? And a second. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
As we're sitting here going through these budgets and we have $90,675 of positive budget, where does that $90,000 go?
Sit in the Social Security fund.
Just, can we
Because-
use those funds in any other, they're all
No.
restricted.
We can use it as cash carry forward for Social Security expenses,
Right.
which I think is a great idea because wages will continue to increase. So given that our percentage to contribute is 7.65%, increase wages, increase that contribution. So it's good to have a healthy Social Security fund.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Make one change on the insurance. So this did not change the bottom line. I just changed the HSA contribution based on the figures that Ms. McBride gave us. So you'll see there's an increase in the employee contribution because those percentages that the employee contributes are going up 2%. So we should collect more money on that side. Does anyone have any specific questions? Did decide to increase the personal property replacement tax allocation to health insurance fund just to make sure that we're in a good place moving forward. And we reduced all of the other funds that the PPRT goes to. So there's a $52,000 surplus.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve, I hear a second. Second. All I can say in terms of comments, I think, we came out of this about as good as I think we can expect. I don't know if anybody got their car insurance bill this year, but I know mine went up. We don't do, family does the Christian health sharing ministry, so I don't get impacted by the medical stuff as much. It's all going on. So I feel like with the liability going down, it came out pretty decent again. And now that we're on a plan where we're funding these HSAs and the employees have more options, I think we're in a better place overall too to plan for the future. So been a good transition. The motion is second. Any other questions?
Comment first. 52,000 net. Talked earlier, we brought it up about goals. I would like to see the county increase their liability involved, which we need $52,000 to do. We're woefully inadequate at $5 million. So I'm not sure how that fits in with this. Perhaps maybe it doesn't at this immediate juncture, but I think that's something.
Does everybody remember that in Carrie's presentation? It's gonna be about 52 grand, go to 10 million in liability coverage on an umbrella. And what we see here is that we actually have money in the budget to do that. Now, my only comment to that, I don't necessarily disagree, that it'd be a good thing. That is gonna impact the budget going forward. That's true. Yeah, that would impact the final number two. The 160. 116 left. 160.
At the bottom number, now plus 161 on the total budget. That where we're at. Very bottom of the whole budget.
Maybe it's not something that we can do this year, but I think it needs to be very high in the front.
So I believe that expense will come out of liability insurance, not health insurance.
Okay.
As it stands right now, we have a surplus of $40,000. One thing we could do is reduce contingency expense. something to consider.
Which is next? Right now, we have a motion and a second on employee health. So let's look at liability. Yeah, so we got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Liability insurance.
So this is
Really
for,
use that contingency.
what's that?
I said, it doesn't look like we really use that contingency.
Right, I do think that we used it, we've used it a little bit since then.
What is that you work out?
Something, used one of the expenses for something, I'll check for you, okay. It's true. So we can reduce this and then include a line to increase the umbrella. I don't know if that would just come out of our general liability. I would imagine they would just include that on our bill that we get.
We don't have a line for the 5 mil that carry now.
It's all included in the general liability expense.
And that is collected from everybody, right?
So there are some contributing, we get real estate tax money. There is a nursing home liability insurance and workman's comp line that I discussed in their budget.
Okay.
Those are the only major sources of revenue there. So it's not like a employer contribution like health insurance. It's
So what I hear you saying is we could reduce that to say 35. Just to use a number.
sure.
And increase the bottom line to 55, and then use 52 of the 55 to increase our liability umbrella to 10 million. And we would still be on the plus side by 2.
Mhm.
With contingencies of 35. It should make any difference
shouldn't
because
make
we
any difference.
just reduced and increased within this budget. Okay.
It doesn't help, but it doesn't hurt.
Right, yeah, we're not picking up extra cash at the end of the day. You're still covered on the contingencies by a fair amount. And you're picking up an extra $5 million in liability. That seems like a pretty bad. I would entertain a motion to that regard. See if the board agrees. You hear a motion, you hear a second?
Before we vote, can we see that bottom line here?
Yep. You double check the bottom line in here.
This bottom line, I'm sorry.
Well,
Liability is right here.
no, the bottom line of all the budgets, remember you were showing us before with the supplementals, there was like 116,000 left over.
That is in capital.
But you still got 161.
It's still 161.
So that'll
Yeah,
update.
I mean, they're totally different funds. They don't impact each other.
I think he was talking about when you get all the way down to the end of the budget.
Okay.
At the total line. No, you were showing us a different screen.
Okay.
Scroll all the way, go to the front, yeah, and go all the way down to the bottom, and the total revenues and total
I
expenses.
think that's what this is.
That's what that is.
Yeah, this is just
There you go.
summary of total revenues and total.
You're still good.
expenses.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So we had a motion and a second to, yes,
Is that motion to reduce it to like, or
Yeah.
just approve it?
she made the changes up there. So the motion in my mind was to move 15 out of contingencies to the general liability line. And then we would increase our umbrella coverage from 5 million to 10 million. which was quoted at a total of 52,000 to change. Jaden, it should have it. Which then leaves a balance of 3,692 at the green now. So we have a motion and a second to approve the budget as stated right there. Any other thoughts, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Yes, sir.
Well, I want to make a motion and what was passed out of committee last Friday, it's not reflected, we just did.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that right for you? Illinois Municipal Retirement.
Since this is part of the real estate tax levy and possibly reducing this levy, I think we can skip it for now.
Okay.
So extension education was approved. Mental health is also involved in the tax levy. Do you want to skip that?
What's the committee's budget? I think it wouldn't hurt to deal with that right now. 'Cause I think we gotta see that too. You guys wanna come back to that?
The only issue is the 708 board will have to manipulate the expense numbers and what each entity receives out of their tax levy amount. So these, I wouldn't feel comfortable manipulating any of these expenses
Right.
without their input.
We're gonna have to send that back.
So we have to send it to Martha first to have her rework those numbers if the committee wants to reduce that cost.
I would like to hear a motion on
I'll make a
that.
motion to.
We have a motion
Back
to
to them,
send it back to
flat
them.
as last year.
Keep it flat from last year. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I think Steve. Did you oppose Steve? Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So make sure she. Okay.
So just to be clear, so the portion of the real estate taxes that they received was 390,000. The cash carry forward was a result of the FHN Counseling Center closing. So they did not receive their final allocation. So I know she said in her presentation that originally it was 400,000. She's increasing it by 4%, which would be 416.
It's really three.
Pardon?
It's really three.
Right. I think the 390 is the new revenue that we took in from real estate taxes.
And that is just an expectation, correct? Based on our previous years, what we gathered in 2023, then we had an expectation 2024, we're projecting that to 2025, right? That it will be the same year over year. But that may in fact go up if the EAB goes up.
Whatever's put on levy.
All right.
Calculate that piece of the levy drives that.
Well, but what I'm saying is if values go from 100 million to 120 million, I mean, wow, and leave the percentage alone. You're still, people are gonna pay more money because their house is valued at a higher dollar amount, right? So that,
That's if you don't change the levy figures at all.
Right.
If you expect, something along that kind of a ratio, but you don't have to leave them the same.
right,
So that would go back to 390.
Right.
Make it flat.
Is it
yes,
the 390?
that's fine.
Yep.
Seems to be EAB should have been up quite good from us. Housing prices have been very,
And I did include that in the figures in the worksheet.
okay. Anybody tired of looking at numbers yet?
So the tuberculosis fund is, held by the health department, so any real estate taxes are transferred to the health department fund. So it's basically an in and out. Whatever's collected is distributed.
I would entertain a motion to that effect. And to approve. And a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? ESP.
The 911 board submitted these numbers. They have a large, amount in cash carry forward that they're bringing into the budget here. It's currently in CDs. So the current 911 coordinator is retiring. So we planned for the worst case scenario as far as insurance. So the HSA contribution would be potentially for family. But they have a surplus of $1,088,000.
That's not reflected.
Pardon?
Well, I think some of us were sitting there thinking these numbers as we roll them down, they're gonna hit the bottom line, it's simple. And I know going back to Treasurer's report. That's restricted. Some of those are.
Yeah,
What's that?
it's restricted. fund.
Yes, very much restricted, yes.
Now, but that does lead to a question in my mind, if they have that much cash left over, do we have to allocate, can we move some of the money around in the budget?
It's not, we don't have.
It's not part of the levy.
That's.
They did increase, their allocation to the county. They do give us some money. Yes, so right here, the Stephenson County, they give Freeport some dollars and the county, so it increased from 27.5 to 88,685.
Oh. Where are they getting their money?
Surcharges. You look at your cell phone bill, your phone bill.
Surcharges on the cell phones.
It's about 60,000 a month just for that.
Another tax.
Yep.
That's good. You want to ask them for more money? Yeah, just go on here. All right, well, this is what's presented, so we entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion. I have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So going into GIS, the reporting fees that they are collecting, and of course, all this is collecting are slightly down. The GIS technician, 4% COLA is included. Also, the majority of the Stewart Center lease is included in this budget. So there's a surplus of $34,493.
Entertain a motion to approve. So moved. I have a motion. And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Skipping over the ARPA fund, donation has been approved. So going to the bond repayment fund. So this fund is just basically a transfer fund. monies are deposited into it and transferred out to pay now only the Millrace crossing debts. So there is a transfer from the general fund because Millrace Crossing does not carry a balance big enough to cover the entire debt certificate payment for a year. So that is included. There's a surplus of $75. Like I said, this is just in and out. So Millrace Crossing contributes, general fund contributes, and then the bank is paid from this fund.
Does the sale of this property go into this at all?
Into the Millrace Crossing Fund, not the bond repayment fund.
All right, so it is what it is. I would entertain a motion to approve. Motion. Second. Second. Any other discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry, you didn't want to skip that ARPA funds?
Just because there's a lot of different moving pieces with that fund.
So we're not gonna talk about that today?
No, I think we will. I just didn't think it was, I thought we could get through everything else and kind of
Get through
focus
the
on
easy ones
ARPA,
first.
capital, public safety, and general fund.
I just hoping we'll all fall asleep before everything happens.
Okay. So this is Millrace Crossing. These are TIF dollars that are collected along with the farm lease. Any legal fees, the real estate taxes, half of the GFP payment comes out of Millrace Crossing as well. And then that's the portion of the bond payment that you saw in 47. Okay.
But where is the sale?
That was in miscellaneous, right here. So there's a surplus of 10,661.
Entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion, second.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So you want to go all the way back up to administrative
I
in
was
general?
thinking public safety.
Okay.
Okay. So I do need to change this number because I did not see, so 911 coordinator put these numbers into Teams about an hour before the meeting. So I did not see the allocation had increased that we were going to receive. Which is a good thing for me. So I just wanted to change that transfer from 911 because this is where it comes, that surcharge that they collect. Public safety tax, we have 2.4 million. We are using 1.1 million of cash carry forward to help fund the sheriff's vehicles. You can see the expenses for, well, I guess, revenue side, or do you want me to go through the whole thing and then?
Just go for the.
Okay, got it. So courthouse security, there's some non-union personnel. These numbers in gray are part of the FOP contract. These as well, and the sheriff did a very informative job of putting the notes in there, so you can see why these increases are included. These are the two transfers, the one to the EMA fund and the other to county coroner. And this was increased slightly from 2024 budget. We changed the employee health insurance and HSA contributions. And here is the sheriff's vehicle supplemental request for all of the cars that he requested. So overall, there's a $33,000 surplus.
Clean, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Do I hear a second?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, there's no buying. It is requested.
I don't, he was here last week. Probably gonna be time to ask that. Did you look at his notes and the request? Sheriff's office has 11 vehicles with over 130,000 miles. 11. Of the 11, 5 are patrol units. The lowest mileage patrol unit of the 5 has 151,239 as of last month. Now, again, these units do a lot of highway. So, I mean, we gotta take some of that into it. A patrol unit averages 3,000 miles a month. Normal lifespan of a patrol unit is 130,000 miles. Mechanical failures begin at the range of 85 to 110. And repair costs begin to exceed the value of the vehicle. So he lists in here on the requested item, 5 Chevy Tahoe squad cars replacing the 2016 Dodge Charger with 151,239. K9 2017 Dodge Charger with 169,422. A 2016 Dodge Ram with 171,406. Patrol 2017 Dodge Charger with 185. A Patrol 2016 Dodge Ram with 192. And then the Patrol new K9 Chevy Tahoe pricing is $59,100 each, which is actually pretty decent.
Well,
Yes, sir.
don't forget to add the other 30,000. For.
Well, I'm going through the rest of it, but,
Yeah.
okay, the Tahoe accessories of $35,851. So it's a total of $94,951 per car. So he's buying 4. That's a total of $236,400. The Chevy Tahoe accessories, $26,232 each. That's $104,000 for a total of $341. The project total cost is $436,279. So in every one of these vehicles, like he's saying, the least one has 151.
Talking. That's not a supplemental.
Out of his own money.
Hmm.
It's coming out of his own money.
It's coming out of his own money, so that point really doesn't.
Right.
Well,
So I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this? Oops, it means that it's on. All those in favor of moving it to the county board, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Going back to the general fund, we left off at 001912, which is administrative services. Did have a chance to get there? Okay. So department head salaries contractual, 4% added to the other salary lines. Huge change here. It's mostly all personnel. She did reduce the overtime salaries for the secretary.
He's doing a nice job on the station.
I think that's.
And photocopy paper, this is for the entire county. Besides budget. So we buy in bulk and divvy it out as needed.
So bottom line on this one,
The total expenses are 235,000. This is part of the general fund. So it's just the expense side.
gotcha. Motion to approve, do I hear a second? I have a motion and a second, any other discussion? Some of those lines. Expense. See what we can do. We got it, got it, across the board or something. Ready want to stretch for 5 minutes? Seriously. Damage Ethernet switches. Again, for this discussion. Well, I think. I know he's got, but I want to switch it. Most of the stuff's.
I'm trying to stay in there. Stuff too.
No, I just. I mean, I deal with because I'm officer or something. We had a guy out just IT and OT. All that interface with the. I don't know. That good? Yeah. So do we vote on that? We had a motion in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Well, this is a
You
question.
got discussion?
What's, we have photocopy paper, but then what's photocopies?
I think it's the
Should the
Copy machine.
Copy machine.
any overages. We have copies that took in.
Toner,
Sonar.
paper.
Service contract.
And that's for the county. For all your departments?
No, this is just for the administrative office. The photocopy paper is countywide. Photocopies is just for that service there.
Well. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Moving on to Department 913, Facilities Management. Wally retired. This was reduced to part-time maintenance. $30,000 for that. Just standard maintenance supplies, tools, and mileage. It's remained flat.
How is that allocated? throughout the year? Who controls it?
Mr. Rummers. If he works hours, he hands in a timesheet to the administrative office. He turns it in on his behalf, and he gets paid out of the regular
So
salary.
Georgia administers.
Yes.
That's all. We have a flat budget, I would entertain a motion to approve that as is. So, we got a motion in a second. We got a motion in a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So moving on to zoning, 914. The department head salary is contractual. It's 4% COLA for the assistant director. There's a couple different lines that were, this one was decreased just due to previous use. And then a small increase for the rent. So overall, the increase was 4.39%.
Well, does Sun have two vehicles? We buy a second vehicle,
I believe so. Yes.
and they still need mileage. Question.
Oh, that is a good question. If they're using county vehicles, why are we paying that? Sam?
Yes.
Would that just be mileage if they had to use a personal vehicle or something?
I don't know.
Don't they have to use a person? It's 10%.
Why wouldn't they?
If they have the pass. Use it. Only vehicle we go to a meeting. Or do they?
The mileage is for ZBA. That's
She's
watching.
watching.
Yeah.
The mileage is for the zoning
Thank
board of
you, Bob.
appeals.
Okay.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. So there-
Can't get away.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's fair.
That's pretty good.
Okay, on to economic development. As I mentioned, $50,000 of the GFP agreement is in the 918 budget. Blackhawk Hills reduced their request, received that in July. And then the KOA tax reimbursement goes to GFP. That is essentially a reduction. 10%.
Can be done. Anybody have any idea why that Blackhawk Hills went down?
Yeah. Blackhawk Hills went down because they sold their interest in high fiber. It was about 5 million. And so they have
That plan
adjusted that for all the counties involved in Blackhawk.
There you go. All right, well, I would entertain a motion to approve that. Happening. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So moving on to Department 922, this is the transfer. These are all the transfer expenses. You can see the health department transfers here. The capital fund adjustments that we made previously. Debt service, which is transferred to the bond repayment fund on behalf of Norris Crossing. And the coroner vehicle lease is included in this budget as well. And this is the final year for the coroner lease.
2 in a row going down.
Yes, and that's the supplemental funding decrease right there.
Okay.
So I don't know if you wanted to wait on that because it does have a transfer to the capital fund.
Why would you do that?
Because the capital fund funds all the supplemental requests. So I don't know if you want to adjust that or,
Okay, so wait a minute. We're giving less to them out of the cap. I see what you're saying. Where is that from?
to the capital fund. It's going from the general fund to the capital fund to fund supplemental requests.
Gotcha.
It's less than it was last year.
It's less, yes.
Uh, We really don't know what that's gonna be. We can do the rest of this stuff, but. Back to, what else can you? Miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous includes our audit expense, any labor attorney fees, postage, and the treasurer asked to add a line for the Amazon Prime Business membership. We've had for,
I absorbed it in my budget
Yeah.
previously, but every department uses it. Like, and I get invoice notifications probably 20 times a day.
Well, that's it.
It's saving us a ton of money.
right.
Okay.
And I know the administrator has recently gotten a lot of requests about tuition reimbursement. That's actually in the personnel policy, so she wanted to include some money in there.
Okay.
Employee health insurance is also here, along with the HSA contribution, and then part of the Stewart Center lease. Code book, and then the Regional Office of Education allocation that we provide, the ROE gives us a request every year. So that's included in this miscellaneous budget in the general fund.
The code book, didn't she have a grant or something? With that, and make that electronic.
These are just for updates.
For the.
Polling place accessibility is,
Well, I'm just thinking the code books. Still. I mean, it's reasonable expense. Why are we giving the regional office of education $40,000? Huh?
We have to.
Why?
We're one of, there's probably 3 or 4 counties, and based on enrollment percentage, I believe, it's a formula. You have to support regional office of education, anybody that has public school districts.
Regional Office of Education makes sure that all teacher licenses are up to date and taken care of. They also work with all of the schools on continuing ed and work with all of the schools for their workshops that they have at the beginning of school year. Make sure those are all legitimate people. So that all goes towards teacher education.
And your regional office is oversight over your school districts too. But it's all formula based.
Why isn't that just coming out of their allocation? Why is it coming out of us?
That's not anything we can,
That's,
that's just.
I'm sorry.
It is not something that we can determine locally.
Question, Chairman,
Yeah,
the office rental at 16,000, I thought the whole Stewart Center was like 70,000 for.
GIS budget.
GIS, I mentioned that
Oh, GIS,
earlier,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
GIS covers that,
yeah, they separated.
yeah. So every floor. Partially responsible.
I'm sorry, that's just another Illinois. Obviously, something that's, plus it's hidden, it should be part of their budget. Yeah, it should. It is what it is.
And that,
Yeah.
the fund 63,800, the employee health insurance, I take it that's not the Blue Cross Blue Shield, right?
Yes,
That's 4 million, almost 4.7.
so
Yeah.
the full Blue Cross Blue Shield is paid out of the insurance fund. Okay, so every fund, so general fund, public safety, nursing center, highway, all of those funds contribute to the insurance fund to pay that bill. So
Okay.
that includes I can just go right back here.
That number you see is just for employees covered under the general. fund.
Yes,
Okay. Just a way to allocate the expense.
so it's part of this number. So we do, the administration office does what you call chargebacks, so you take the portion of the bill that the general fund should cover, the public safety fund should cover, and then those funds pay the insurance fund, so that fund can pay the bill.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned before, you'll see that this has gone down slightly from last year. And again, we planned for the worst case scenario that every single employee included in the general fund would take the most expensive plan to the county, and that didn't happen. It got spread out a little bit more evenly. So like I said, the insurance impact by fund is not as drastic as we originally thought it would be. So this request has actually gone down.
Yeah. It amazes me that anything. Entertain a motion to approve this as stated. Should. I got a motion. I got a second.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
So the only expense in the contingency department is contingencies. So we budgeted 200,000 last year, and I put 150,000 for 2025.
And you see the numbers that we actually spent the last 2 years. Be careful, don't drop that too much.
There is going to be one adjustment at the end of the year. So it has not hit yet. This will be presented in November. If we go back and look at the GFP agreement. So if you recall, we had to pay Ingrown Farms back the money that they paid us. So that in turn put a huge strain on the mill race crossing fund. So they were not able to cover their 50% share of the GFP allocation. So I was going to present to the board that instead of running this line over, we take 50,000
Contingency.
out of contingency.
Nice. But you're still dropping it by 50,000 going into. Yes, when you look at the history. I think that's probably smart. Why not 100? In your opinion?
It was 100,000 in years past. It's increased for 2024. Just kind of split the difference.
Any thoughts from the committee on that? Before I ask for a motion. Well, I mean, if you dropped it to 100, you have 50,000%. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair,
Just thinking out loud. Yes, sir.
I will tell you that in March and April of this year, we were already getting contingency dollar requests from departments. I asked, it's IT, state's attorney's office, there's one other I can't recall off the top of my head, but I asked them to hold off on contingency and try to find funds within their budget that at the end of 2024, they were short. But at that time, we would look to use contingency. So I would ask that you not lower that too much because there's so many unknowns with this county and so many quote unquote emergencies that seem to pop up.
Any other thoughts?
Make a motion to approve the contingencies at 150.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Thoughts? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, moving on to Department 925. This is information technology, IT. So there's IT manager, there is a 4% COLA plus a $75 monthly phone reimbursement. This is a standing cost that we have, the IT lease payment, 20,000 for expenses. There is an increase to the Microsoft licensing agreement, just due to a change for Microsoft. IT managed services is any contractual agreements that we have with Three Rock and Arrow.
You know, it's, well, I'm sure we wrapping it up time.
He actually said, oh, as far as, you want me to look at what the current expense is?
Well, no, I'm just looking at that going, it was budgeted at 50, we only used 11. And you bumping it up another 5, I'm just wondering if we can keep it at 1. Fine. That's up to 19,421.
Yeah. But this isn't a full year either.
I think the three lines are gonna more closely reflect what you see on line 10. I think that's what you'll see more likely toward the end of the year.
And then we're also missing first ones and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the increase. I don't have a problem with it. We bumped it up another 10%.
Well, I think part of this is, I don't know if you recall his conversation about the grants that the circuit clerk's office is likely to get and the amount of work that that is going to entail, which means we then, the rest of the county, while he's doing those things, will rely on the contracted services for our, whatever it is that we need. So that's a lot of what you saw in that recent expense, because he has been preoccupied with other projects. So we have had to utilize Three Rock in here.
Why is Grant paying for that?
I'm sorry.
Why would Grant want to be paying for that?
The grant is very specific as to what it will pay, and a lot of it does not include installation. It's the stuff, it's not the installation.
Is there a reason why server maintenance is budgeted?
So I believe this will be an ongoing expense after, if the supplemental request is approved. I think this will just be a yearly
That's why it's
maintenance
already-
based on
that's
the
what's served.
switch installation. Right. Yes,
Much smaller.
Right.
Each year.
so he just wanted me to add that just to make sure that we're aware that that's coming.
Yeah, if we've got our server, we should be able to use some of the licenses. Turn up the back and
This is something that's on server. Don't get so far behind, you don't have to spend a lot of time. Maybe you spend 10 or something.
I personally love Microsoft so much that I would be in favor of dumping it and going into Google Docs.
No, you got one over here that's not a big fan of Google. My friend.
Your county
There's this,
staff would revolt.
You're writing,
110,000.
Yeah, it's a big
saying
change.
that they get you, man.
What is the financial system expense? That's curiosity.
That's our financial software that I keep referring back to. It's our CIC
Gotcha. What you
budgetary
like?
accounts
Works good?
payable. What's that?
You like, works good?
It's fine.
That's, I don't-
It's $20,000 worth, let's say that.
Getting what we pay for.
Exactly. does things.
See, in my world, Brian, I would do it all on spreadsheets. I don't need some.
Oh,
That just,
oh.
I know, I don't do what you guys do.
Yeah.
Platform
It takes me
integration,
20
right?
times longer.
Yeah. Tell that to our partner.
That's- Just saying, in my little world. Anyway. So we have what's the percentage increase in that? That's the other part is, 9%.
My response to that is the 4% and the Microsoft. Microsoft's 3%.
Right.
And then 3.
And taking it to 5 out of that. And services. Not that much.
And is the Microsoft by each user, or is it a block of?
Changes, I think.
Yeah, and then there's a different type of user. Things like that. So,
Users.
yeah. That's where we get you.
Business 1025.
So this came through my committee and I heard it all from me to stop with it instead of the committee, so I'm not making this.
Got a motion to approve, do I hear a second? Have a second. Other discussion, we only have, what's the telephone internet, is that just internet? Or imagine we, because we use VoIP? Okay, okay. So let's keep the net constant. You can see that went down quite a bit between. It's a big part of our expectation, I think, from our citizens too, when we're talking about that reliable communications. So being able to have good access, let people have good access to the government. That's where it's all going. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Well, anyone left on my feet that I can see is I am on two.
So we have the general fund revenues, capital fund, MRF, and ARPA.
Yeah, we didn't do the revenue. Lead on, Madam Finance Director.
So I can go through the revenues outside of the real estate taxes. So state income tax, they increased the allocation to the general fund and decreased the allocation to the capital fund. That is split between those two funds. So this is something that can be adjusted. Percent sales tax, 0.25% sales tax. We've seen a trend that we've been receiving more, so I did increase those lines. Video gaming stays the same. Local use is the same.
Yeah, but why is video gaming the same? It seems like there's video gaming on every corner.
In the unincorporated parts of the county, that's the only part of the revenue we get.
We don't get anything in the city.
We get about 11 to
There's one going up
12,000.
at Baumgartner's up there. That's gotta be, so.
We get, currently, we get 11 to 12,000 in. Considering the unincorporated areas.
I guess what I'm saying is it seems like that's on increase, whatever that. People.
Depends on what people need them.
Right. Well, if Trump gets elected, they're already have more money, right? So,
So PPRT, like I mentioned before, we did drastically reduce that. County treasurer fees remain the same. Assessor fees remain the same. Clerk and recorder decreased slightly. And then the circuit clerk, through the Safety Act, we did reduce, we took the Safety Act reductions into account last year. We didn't see those drastic numbers. Pardon?
It looks like it's tracking.
Yeah, we didn't see those the numbers, quite as drastic as we planned, so the circuit clerk said with the amount of,
So that's what they approved at the committee, Mr. Bush? 220 on the revenue side.
the committee only sees, the expense side.
That's
Waivers, that's what I was looking for, sorry. Judges are giving out more and more waivers, so the fees will continue to trend down. So we just kept all of these court fees kind of steady because we will see a reduction. Zoning administrator went up 10,000. Traffic assessments just based on the history. Sheriff reimbursement, got this number from the sheriff. This is the hearing officer. Yeah, that's it. I can see the projects. State's attorney salary reimbursement, that goes up corresponding to the increase in the state's attorney salary reimbursed. So this is the polling place accessibility grant that the county clerk is receiving. So there's a corresponding expense for that same amount in her elections budget. And then we do get salary reimbursements for public defender, sheriff, probation. This line is something I mentioned previously. So the public defender said he was willing to reimburse for the staff salary increases, the personnel requests that he submitted. So this is a revenue line for that. Voter registration grant went down. This is the supplemental request submitted by the state's attorney. I said there was a corresponding revenue. This is it. And revenue stamps are going down. This cash carry forward here increased to $3 million. There is a transfer from ARPA of $250,000. That is some unspent funds that the sheriff anticipates from the roof and elevator project. So total revenues, $16,505,000.
Questions? What are the other revenue stamps that was the property transfer? They're going down. That's based on sale price of property. Selling less property.
The real estate fees, like the transfers and recording fees, are going down, yes, according to the assessor and the county clerk.
Sales.
Sales are going down.
All your streets.
Crazy.
Why is that zero for this year?
That's usually an end of year.
Does it transfer those funds to the end of the year?
Why is it a flat rate? I mean. No, I'm looking at the last 2 years. Yeah, it's an estimate this year, there was only 400,000 last year. Then a percentage of the sale or something? That's a good question, Steve. That makes no sense. Property values are going up, there's more properties being sold. It seems like that would be more.
I don't remember the thousand off the top of my head.
So I count on the department heads that collect these revenues to give me an estimate of what
Right.
will be.
No,
So
I'm
if I
not-
had more information, I would
giving you a hard
definitely
time.
provide it.
I'm wondering if we should go back from assessment. kind of, Back year over year. Not even the increase. I think it's a valid question. Anyway. 15 grand ain't gonna make that big of a difference. Yeah. Move on. That's it. Thank you.
So this includes the reduction from
Go
IMRF.
back to flat.
Yeah, go back to flat here, so 390. That is simply reducing IMRF and moving those dollars into the general fund, so 400,000 more. I did want to mention one other thing. So if we go down to ARPA. I have notes and I've been asking the different department heads who received ARPA funds, how much is going to be remaining. I'm still waiting on. I think the crime suppression unit is going to be 0. So German Valley, something different is going to happen there.
So do we
Then
need
this
to
number
address that
changed.
first before we finalize the revenue? Is that what you're saying? So do you want to move over to the ARPA fund first? I think it might be easier to look at it in a different format. So these are all of the expenses to come out of the ARPA fund. So these were all previously approved. These were 2024. So the change that was made was the road projects. The highway department did get 2 million, but there was an additional 1 million that was supposed to go to them in 2025. And that was removed and given to City of Freeport and German Valley. So you can see that right there. So if we do nothing different to this, it's gonna stay there. Or do we have to repass it? Because it's already set up this way. We don't have to do anything necessarily. If we leave it as is.
If we leave it as is, I need to calculate, what the cash carry forward is going to be. Because that's a major part of the revenue. That's all the revenue. Those unused funds need to be carried forward into 2025 so we can spend them. We need to know what those funds are going to be.
Right.
Yes. So this is the plan that was passed last year.
But some of this has been expended, some of it hasn't.
Correct.
Do we need to know what's been expended in order to make a motion? To move this on, or do we just leave this the way it is?
I will have to rework the budget numbers to find out what needs to be carried forward, what is unspent, what's going to be reallocated. I'm also waiting on a finalized number from the sheriff because he doesn't know if he's going to get every single penny spent and invoiced in 2024. There might be some remainder that needs to be spent in early 2025 just because of the delay in invoices.
But that doesn't change the allocation.
Right. It does not change this. I'm saying it changes the budget worksheet because the cash carry forward will be different. That expense might be carried over into 2025. So let's say he has $1 million budgeted.
Right.
And he only spends $750 in 2024, then $250 needs to be carried forward to spend the remainder in 2025.
We're not changing the overall.
Not changing the overall plan, but that's kind of the budget worksheet needs to be changed once I figure out what the plan is, if there are any changes.
All these expenses were paid last year. Allocated from other things. Yes, sir.
If I may, what is the status of our meeting software? For folks voting efficiencies or something?
Know the answer to that?
I know that the county clerk and county administrator have met with a couple different vendors. They haven't found the right fit quite yet. So I plan to carry that 20,000 over since it's already been earmarked for the meeting software. It has to, I mean, unless there's a change before December 31st, which is possible, that's no longer needed, but the plan was to include it in the cash carry forward and spend it in 25 to provide more time.
Something with the voting and minutes.
Right.
And they have
I'm trying to work through that.
good solution.
I think it's, the hiccup was the fact that our meetings are in 2 different locations. We haven't found a software that can move with us, I guess. You know, the IT manager has been involved as well.
That's surprising.
Radio stations, don't forget about the long main highway.
I know. I think the county clerk is gonna reach out to other county clerks in the area to see what works for them.
Well, I think the only question mark here in my mind is the German Valley piece. Does anybody else have anything else on there? I think we have gentlemen here that can speak to that. How important or not important these funds are.
Can you hear from
Yes. You gentlemen like to speak to that? Sorry, it's taking so long. You guys stand up. Just so they can see you. Please state your name for the.
Sean Gallagher, village engineer, village trustee, and also representing the enforcement on the school board.
And Paul, Superintendent of Public Works.
So inform the committee, please, where the project's at, what, if this continues to be allocated to the project, what we use the funds for, and we've heard a lot of different things about the project, that that we got some money from the EPA, and now, Mr. Sorensen was able to get some federal funds that might be coming with the project to finish it up. I don't think anybody, at least I don't know exactly where all this stuff's, because obviously we could use this money for other things. So we want to make sure we've already promised it to the project, but yet if we could use it for other things, then
I don't think changing the scope is the proper terminology because it always was going to be spent. We're staring down for approximately $7 million total project.
Yeah, obviously, we've suffered the same inflationary increases that you guys have seen across, public works facilities. So, what we had previously estimated a couple of years ago may not be overly relevant. However, it did change for us, which prompted us to, contact the administration, the chairman's office was in July, we were notified by IP that we had taken out a loan for our portion of this new improvement, over $1 million worth of work. And we're notified by EPA that they would actually give us a forgiving loan on that, of 100%. So that is one piece of the multifaceted, complete revamp of our treatment facilities in Jordan Valley. So as gracious as that is, that solves an immediate need, but that is not all of the immediate need. So what we had asked for in the change of request was to move on to what is our second phase of that project, which is replacing our lift station. Our entire municipality is functioning by one lift station built in the 1950s. It very much looks like a train wreck, because it somewhat is, other than the same improvements we did a few years back. So even as of the letter I previously stated, we're actually looking at some expansion in the village as far as new homes. This is a new development over the last month, potentially as many as 20 additional homes. So we have a facility that's 100% run by the lift station that's in dire need of replacement. This was not necessary. This is something that's been focused on since 2017. That's actually in the county emergency management information. Noted back when we prepared those documents.
Our multi-hazard mitigation we did with Black Hawk Hills, we identified this 2017, 7 years ago. It's not something we just pull out of the hat. When the IUPA helped us with the polishing reactor, which was phase 1A. That was great. The county $500 million was huge to us because in 2018, we spent $3.1 million on a drinking water system with 0 loans. Every citizen for every water meter in town is paying back 187 water connections, is paying back for $3.1 million. So the $500 million for our wastewater portion was huge, and it still is. We're not changing the scope. That's how I started. It always was going to wastewater. We just asked for a change in the intergovernmental agreement wording to this portion of 1B of our project. This
is a direct failure point within the village. If our station fails, so the town doesn't have treatment that actually needs to be compliant. So the first phase was to get in compliance with EPA as far as our actual effluent release. But now we actually have the emergency factor of a failure point within that system to release, which we felt was still within the county conversation that we originally asked for emergency funding to ease that issue. We certainly understand that we were able to secure some federal funds. However, that could be several years in the making before that money actually comes to be.
And we asked questions about cost sharing percentages of that. We still have to spend upwards of that $7 million total. Guarantee of that by saying. So the $500 million is still a huge. We're not, I keep repeating that, we're not changing the scope. It's still going to the wastewater project. It was designed with a long range plan. 2 years ago, we had Fairground designed it. So we're not just pulling this out of a hat. IEPA gave us $1.5 million for the polishing reactor. Ideally, that intergovernmental agreement when it was first wrote would have been for wastewater project improvements. And that would have been, we probably wouldn't be here because we're just asking to have a couple of words changed from polishing reactor to resolution.
Any questions for the gentleman?
Money possibly coming from Eric Sorensen and the feds, there's a way yet? Or we don't know.
I think our village president answered at your last county board meeting, we have no guarantees. That was a press conference during election year. That, we're not giving a $5 million check. We asked a lot of questions of when, how, and we've got.
The biggest hiccup with that money is it goes to the Army Corps of Engineers. They can, the way it was described to us when we originally applied for it is they could elect to not take on the project. If they don't want to. They can't necessarily spend money on something else, but on their end, if they chose not to take on our project, they wouldn't have to. So yes, it's great to have that idea that we have that coming, but there's no guarantees. Sure. So I don't want you to view that as the silver bullet to solve the problem. I certainly appreciate the consideration to it, but even in that funding, that's a 2 to 4 year window. Looking at it.
And as you unfortunately got to witness with Bill Ray's water and sewer extension, our $7 million engineer's estimate 2 years ago couldn't go to 8.5 with what costs are. And we have all those unknowns. Let's just add a rough 7 and the 3.1 we've already spent. Our 433 citizens have $10 million of infrastructure improvements staring down at them. And yes, the first piece of the puzzle has been the IEPA $1.5 million, and your county $500,000. That's huge. So, I mean, take 10 million divided by 433 citizens, and unfortunately, we weren't asleep at the wheel. They were 50-year infrastructure projects. That our newest portion of them was 1972. So do the math. It's just we're here.
Thank you for being here. Any other questions?
Intergovernmental agreements by their nature are very specific. Would you agree with that?
Written a few,
So our agreement with Freeport was for a street project and it was specific enough that it named a street. So in our agreement with you guys, when you came to us initially, did you talk about a lift station? As I recall, it was almost the polishing.
correct. We had identified the immediate issue was our lack of compliance with IEPA, which was the polishing reactor, which had proven to be somewhat unaffordable at the time. Obviously getting that, the critical aspect of our entire facility is the lift station. So it's one, do I replace a lift station that's critical to the environment, or my compliance piece with IEPA? They care about the compliance until my other aspects of my infrastructure fail. Then they'll care about that piece. This would allow us to bridge the two projects together. And ultimately what that does is reduce our footprint just to the lagoons that hopefully we can work with the Army Corps to complete that project. That alleviates our other issues.
I feel for you guys and I feel for the citizens of Jones Valley. My problem with it has been all along that not what we can do with that $500 million, but what we can't do. What we can't do is provide that lift station to every town in the county. I can't do one for you guys and do one for Pearl City. I can't do one for Dakota. And so because of that, I can't support, and I didn't before, not trying to be say it personally. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, that's how I see it. I personally would not be in favor of renewing it.
I'm in favor of it. I mean, I was at the beginning. I mean, after all, we made a commitment to it. And I think that it'd be bad on us to back off of that if we made a commitment to the city of Freeport. I understand what you're saying. do enough. But after sitting here and listening to these gentlemen and knowing, realize how serious the situation is, if we could be able to be a good help to other counties, other areas. And I think that's the problem today. We don't get along enough to be able to move things ahead. And I'm seeing that if we back off of here, that's going to make us look kind of crazy. So if we make a promise, then we back away from it. Understand we got some other issues that we need to take care of. But at the same time, being a good neighborly or whatever to General Valley to help them out in this situation. So that's why we voted for
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm next. I'm gonna agree with Brian. I was against it from the get-go. I was against giving Freeport 500,000. Just because it's such a very bad precedent. Every village, whatever, every project. We're not Candyman. So I was against it then, against it now. I fully feel for this problem, but just don't think it's fair to the other villages in this county. Okay, it's such a very bad precedent. So I'm gonna vote that we remove this 5 months out of here. And I'm gonna vote to not, renew that, agreement. So.
Yes, sir. When we look at dollars spent, say where we're not going to do this for this community, or we're not going to do it for that community, do the same thing every day, still here, make sure that we spend money on roads. If we don't spend money on roads every day for Dakota, or we don't spend money on roads every year for Pearl City, and this isn't for every year. And these dollars that we use in this situation aren't dollars that we have available every year. These dollars were in a whole different realm than we're normally using dollars for. And this situation that the village of German Valley has had is a difficult situation. We looked at a lot of different things and ways to spend these dollars. Do some of these things where we've spent millions. That doesn't help anybody when we spend $1 million on repairs for elevators and the roof. How many people in our community use that building? But yet we can spend $1 million on that of ARPA funds. I think we're looking at issues here that probably are similar in scope as far as necessary, need to be done. So I would have to say that in this particular situation, we need to support those people in German. So if we're going to talk about how we vote, I would rather move to take those things away in other places, but we can't do it now. So I have to support German Valley in this particular issue, unless we're going to look at overall picture on a lot of things.
Well, I would add, I guess from the conversation standpoint, I don't agree that these funds ever came to us. I think it's the federal government, in my mind, was never set up to allocate funds to individual counties, municipalities. It's supposed to be, when they spend money, it should be something that benefits everybody, the road, the interstate road system, as it works. Paying for our national defense. They've gotten way beyond that. Now, having said that, the money's here. We were given the money. It's not tax money that's come out of the county, and it's not part of our regular allocation. So in a functional sense, I agree with some of the comments I've heard on it's very difficult to pick and choose. Well, if we're gonna fund this, why can't we fund from this. However, I agree with the other statement that this is a once in a lifetime thing. We don't know what's ever gonna happen. And we do have an immediate need here that needs to be addressed. So it's hard for me, since we've already made the commitment as a board. As much as I personally would like to, because I'd rather see a road project get done. No offense to folks in German Valley.
May I add one comment?
Yes, sir.
I know on behalf of the city and ourselves, our argument at the end of the day, from the original meetings was, this county was gonna make investments in our corner of the county. That's what separated us from those cities, from the cities, from the counties. We were gonna make $16 million infrastructure in our backyard that includes our fire district, that includes our school district, that ours. Yes, it does not formally impact Sherman Valley. Those dollars would be spent in the corner of the county. And I think fairly to Freeport, we've been supplying the water, the infrastructure to this location. That's, I think, why we got where it's us, the argument versus some of the municipalities.
Thank you. So it comes back to making a motion. Correct. Do you need anything from us? If we don't change a thing on here, do you need anything from us? We don't need to take any action because this is the way it's set up right now.
My point is, if I need to, the sheriff said he could have better numbers to me at the end of November, before the meeting in November, and I would like to give him that time. Because we need to have a very, very, very accurate picture of what is going to be remaining from these dollars.
Mhm.
That would be my only request. If nothing's changing, I have that piece of information, and I don't think anything's required. I just
We don't
ask that
need to
we,
take any further action.
right, I just would ask that we don't do anything with the ARPA budget then.
The intergovernmental agreement is on the budget or on the agenda.
All right. So we're gonna take action on that piece of it. Anyway. So. So I understand things correctly. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to pipe in on this, you're more than welcome. We don't need to take any action on this budget.
We shouldn't take any action on the overall. Bill. We can make changes to it now if we wish. But depending on how the vote goes tomorrow night, so
We're gonna have
some of that. I don't know how much more you want to say. Yeah,
You're welcome to say anything you have in mind to say.
I'm not advocating one way or the other right now, but I would say that what was approved previously. I don't think anybody's going back on their word. The project for the funds itself, scope may not have changed, but the actual project changed. The reason why I asked for a new IGA is because at some point, this county is going to be audited by the federal government for the expenditure of these ARPA funds. It will happen. I promise that. In smaller counties and smaller municipalities, we receive smaller dollar amounts will be the first one that will be audited because they're easier. And you better spend that money exactly as you said you were going to, which is why we needed a new IGA. Okay, so just for clarification, when people say we gave our word, we approved an IGA. That IGA is no longer in effect. So again, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't spend the money. But to say that you can't go back on your word, you're not going back. You're doing a different portion of the project now. But that's a choice everybody's gonna have to make. I can tell you that I've talked to my constituents in Cedarville and in Orangeville, parts of Dakota. They look at me like I'm crazy. Now they don't understand it all. Saying, why are we using tax dollars to help the village of German Valley? What are you doing for Cedarville? What are you doing for Orangeville? And again, it's not that simple, but in their eyes it is. Same thing when they said, why did we give the city of Freeport?
I had one of, just as a side comment along these lines, I had one of, had lunch with one of Mr. Proclaim's current constituents of the government. And, he was telling me, I don't mind spending more. As long as I can see it, as long as I can see something. Trying to figure out what that up. Because there's things that you don't see that get done behind the scenes. You know, nobody's gonna see that at the end of the day, except when they come into the treasurer's office, paying the tax bill. So it doesn't sound like we're taking any action on that this time. And again, I think, I appreciate you pulling the calendar up, because we still got time to finalize all this stuff once we get through the county board meeting tomorrow and then the other cycle in the next week. What else? Do you have anything else on your docket we have to do on the budget side
I think
besides this?
the committee needs to hold off on the general fund revenues, capital fund, IMRF
So we get to
until November's meeting, because I think the county board meeting tomorrow will be, a lot of decisions will be made at that point.
Does anybody have any issues with that?
So supplemental requests will also be deferred.
Correct.
I think that would be the full agreement here. Okay. So we do have an item 9.5, approval and prioritization of fiscal year supplemental requests. So
Prioritization
we're gonna,
could be considered.
the sheriff's department stuff top of there.
Mhm.
We already talked about how to fund a couple of those. And
table.
well, that's what I'm thinking. We should table until after we decide on the ARPA thing.
To table the 2025 supplemental request.
Okay, I have a motion there in a second. Good. All those in favor, say aye.
So can you actually to which meeting?
The next month's finance meeting.
To the next finance meeting.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Did you just second that?
Mhm.
Sorry, I got confused with multiple voices over the room.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? I'm gonna, forego the committee chair reports this evening unless somebody has something they wanna bring up. We'll move to public comment.
Yeah, so.
I got a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Thank you for your comments. Ladies.